This is FestivalPass Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next. All right, friends, welcome back. This is FestivalPass Stories, where we take you behind the stage, the kitchen, and the studio door to hear those stories of passion and inspiration that are behind some of the world's best festivals. And today, we take you on the road with a guy who toured with Luke Bryan, and we take you inside the head of the concert promoter, which is him. And my guest today is the founder, very young founder of Up All Night Music Group, yet somehow he looks well-rested. Live from Connecticut via New York City or vice versa, please welcome Josh Rothstein. Josh, what is happening, my man?
What's up, Pat? Very happy to be here. So thanks for making some time and excited to chat.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I mean, it's been quite a year. I think that might be the understatement of this quite a year. But, you know, we're almost through it. So congratulations to both of us for surviving 2020. And I believe we're all getting some sort of award at the end of this or a stimulus check. I'll take a stimulus check. I don't care. But I think we should all be getting some sort of medal or a tattoo. Or perhaps not. Perhaps a tattoo would be the worst thing to have after 2020.
My Jewish grandparents would not be thrilled about that.
No. If the Homish Book got around and heard about that, they would not. That would not go down well. I can imagine that. Yeah. But I always like to start with 2020's most dangerous question. The answer to this might take us through the whole time that we have allotted for this, but that's fine as well, because I'm always interested in hearing the answers. So how are you?
Yeah, I'm good overall. It's been a whirlwind of a year. Obviously starting a concert promotions company in November of 2019 with our first show taking place in February of 2020, has been interesting to say the least. But I'm employed. We have a company. I work with some of my best friends in the world. And we've managed to work with some really great artists so far. Even if most of it's been in kind of a virtual world. So overall, can't really complain. And fingers crossed that 21 is going to be a big comeback year for all of us.
Yeah, from your lips right there to the big man's ears, or the big woman. You are in the business of concert promotion, of course, and since there are no concerts, at least in person, I was on your website and I was like, wow. This guy pivoted quickly. Now, every time I use a quarantine buzzword, I think we should have to do a shot. So I just said pivot. So we'll do an imaginary shot because we don't have a budget for actual open bar here. So apologize for that. I'm not sure what your rider was in the green room, but we didn't have any tequila for you. But I saw that you came up with some really creative solutions with your clients. So well done. That's a second medal that they're going to give you after this year. But my question is really, what was the process like convincing these artists who feed off that energy of a live crowd? Good night, Cleveland, you're the best. To start performing into like this void that we're doing right now. Was that a process, or were you just like, we're pivoting, we're doing it, here's what we're gonna do. Listen to me, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had to figure it out. That's that's the short, easy answer is like, when, in the way
what are we doing?
Works right now, like probably 95% of an artist's income is coming from live performances. So, I mean, it had to be done. We had to figure it out. I will say not every artist is positioned super well to do kind of a virtual event. I mean, it's hard. It's really difficult. It's not easy to play to a computer screen and not be able to hear any response. And you kind of have to work with artists to prepare them. But there are some kind of innovative things we've been able to do that make the experience really cool for the consumer. So like we did a show with Chelsea Cutler. I went to Hamilton College, so we did like a virtual private event, and we actually got to have students, we did it over Zoom. So students could join the Zoom and ask a question like face to face to Chelsea. And that's something that, in a real, if you do a concert and show up in person, a random student isn't going to get that access to actually ask the question. So There's been a lot of negatives, more than we'd like to count, but there have been kind of a few things we've tried to do to make it kind of a special experience for both the artist and the consumer. So that's kind of been the main target, is to figure out, what are the positives from it.
Yeah, and that's true, right? The access to the artists, the access to celebrities in general. My normal job when again we can be in front of people, be that I be an auctioneer in front of rooms of 500 to 1,000 plus people, and feeding off that energy. And I mean, I love that. And it's like, after I finish an auction, sometimes it's like, mic drop. I'm not comparing myself to an artist that plays guitar and gets the house rocking, but when you raise a ton of money or hit a big goal, the place goes nuts. And I always throw in some fun and improv and try to get everybody excited. And now I do these virtual auctions, and at the end of it, I'm like, we just hit our goal. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Beep. And then it's just me in an empty room with nobody to go high five or whatever. So, I mean, I understand that energy, but what we've been able to do with all these events is reach out to celebrities and say, would you do a recorded message, or would you join us live from the comfort of your couch? And everybody is game for it now, because they're like, yeah, I could do 20 appearances a week, stay busy, keep my mind sharp, and also, support all these great charities and give people access to me that they just normally wouldn't have unless I was DMing them or whatever on Insta or social.
Yeah, now, it's a great point. Just in my other hat, besides up on our music group, I'm on the brand partnerships team at Primary Wave Entertainment. Yeah. And one of our bands that we manage is Jefferson Starship. This iconic band, descending from Jefferson Airplane, playing at Woodstock.
Yeah, they're even older than me, if you can believe it.
They're amazing. And they have a huge political history, dating back to the beginning of the band, with Grace Slick and all of them. And they really wanted to get involved in the 2020 election. So we set up about 15 virtual fundraisers for them. And so we picked Democratic candidates down the ballot that, obviously Joe Biden has Beyonce and Cardi B. He didn't really need Jefferson Starship, right? So we kind of felt the best.
He was probably thinking, he goes, I don't know if I should. I love Starship or Airplane, whatever. But is it a good idea if I'm trying to connect to this younger demographic?
Yeah. So
I think what we found out through with the Fleetwood Mac moment that they're having. I mean, Fleetwood Mac's been having a moment for 50 years, but Fleetwood Mac has connected to all these kids on TikTok, and they're all downloading this music, and they think it's new, and I love it. Yeah. Love it. But you're saying
we took them. We did 15 events for Democratic candidates down the ballot who maybe weren't getting as much attention as the top race. We did events with Nancy Pelosi and Eric Holder and Tish James and Gretchen Whitmer and all these amazing people, and the band ended up raising over $100K for Democrats and
that's incredible.
Important battleground races, and we never would have been able to have done that, but with virtual, it could they just turn on their computer and go. So it was really easy to do.
These are performances where people pay $50 or something to be able to watch the live stream.
Yeah, $250, whatever it was. It was a pretty big range.
Yeah, there gets to be a point where they get capped on their donations per candidate or whatever, so they have to be careful with that too. So that's a lot of outreach. There's a lot of people giving small amounts to get to that amount. That's incredible. I didn't even hear that story. So I felt like I really dug in on the election and dug in on the media and read everything out there. But I love to hear stories like that. Now, were those live events or were those pre-recorded and so they could do a bunch of them?
We did a few different things. So the band is in, Kathy, who's the lead singer, is in Chicago, and the rest of them are kind of spread out all across California. So we pre-recorded a few videos of various songs in a real soundstage in a real studio. And so we offered up all those to the campaigns. And then some of them said, okay, that's cool, but we'd rather a live song. And so when that happened, Kathy would just do an acoustic song.
Wow.
So all of it was done live. And then the band would do a question and answer session after the performance. So we tried to do as much live as possible. And some of them didn't want a Q&A and they just wanted the music, and that was fine. So it was really kind of whatever the campaign wanted.
So the Bowery Electric show I saw with Theo Candle, or is it Kendall, and Swim? I mean, that was live from the venue. I mean, talk about getting creative. That was almost like a hybrid event with them live streaming from the venue. How did that one come about? And was that something the venue was hesitant to do? Did you approach them with that, or were they like, we would love to do this with you and your acts?
I love the Bowery Electric. That's one of our favorite venues in all of New York, and it's where I jokingly call it my home court, because that's where our one and only in-person shows so far.
You wear the white jersey when you go there, the home jersey.
Yeah, but they reached out, and no one else is doing this, by the way. I haven't really seen any venues, and they were really early on in doing it, and they said right away, the streaming thing is great and there's money here, but the quality is awful. Just doing it over Instagram Live, it doesn't look good, it sounds bad, the internet's bad. So when they were already shut down, by the pandemic, they took about 2 months probably, and they really thought about, what budget do we need? How can we do this? How is it going to work? And they invested a lot of money. They put in a bunch of cameras, and what they're doing is the show is taking place from the venue. They're using the real soundboard, the real light board. So it looks great and it sounds great. And we stream it all through Veeps, and they hit me up about it, and they said, we want to play some shows. And, I said, of course. And our goal with Up All Night, we're not, it's a virtual streaming show. We're not really trying to make a ton of money.
Yeah.
The way,
more exposure for the artist.
Yeah. And it keeps the venue in business. That's really the most important thing, is I have a very vested interest in this venue getting through these next few months and opening up, come May, June, July, when we can kind of get back into it. And there's a void. People have left the city, and a lot of the independent promoters can't afford to do streaming shows full time, because you just don't make as much. It's just the reality. So we've been very lucky that we're able to kind of come in and pick and choose our spots and make sure that our artists are getting an opportunity to put some money in, and the same goes for the venue.
Now, did this also help out with NEVA, the new group, the National Independent Venue Association, that launched right when the pandemic was happening? I'm sure you heard about these guys. They mobilized so quickly, got support in Congress, and they were able to go and talk to lawmakers and say, look, we're not hotels. We're not banquet halls. We're something completely different. And we can't really pivot because, again, there's a shot, because we have to, we rely on ticket sales, merch, and food and beverage in the house. We can't start selling our food to go. We can't do beers to go, and we can't sell tickets right now. So we're screwed. And so they had a whole separate special interest group set up, and they just did a big fundraiser to raise a couple of million, which was fantastic. I was wondering, was Bowery Electric involved in any of that at all?
They're probably a member. I'm not sure exactly. There's tons of people all kind of in that small world who are doing amazing things. The one thing that's been very disappointing for me, as someone who, got into this as a fan first and foremost, is that anytime something bad happens in the world, whether it's a terrorist attack or a natural disaster or a disease, what's the first thing that happens is musicians get together and they donate their time, and they throw a big concert or a telethon, and they raise millions of dollars. And that's, literally every significant event that's been bad of the past 30 years, you can go back and look, and there's been a concert. And so it's been really disappointing that Congress has been so slow to act here. And there are so many venues who are starving and are not going to come back. So what organizations like that are doing is really important. And I'm hoping that moving forward, we can actually get some stuff done now.
It's the venue, it's the amount of jobs, it's the economic impact that they have. And those are the kind of numbers that they had to put forward to show how important they are to the ecosystem of the economy. And it was, I agree with you 100%. Shame on them. It's just, there's so much more that could have been done for these small businesses. And small businesses are the engine of the economy, and they're the engine of the recovery of the economy as well. In 2008, when we went to a recession and started coming out of it, it was small businesses. It was entrepreneurs like yourself that created these small businesses that started to really, they went from 1 person to 3 people to 5. And then there's hundreds and thousands of those companies. So people aren't sitting around waiting. They're going out and they're like, I can do this myself. I'm not going to let somebody else ever again tell me I'm laid off. If I'm ever laid off again, it's because I failed, not because the people that were my bosses failed. like it's my fault and I know somebody to blame, and I know I can start something else again because I've got the gumption to do it. So speaking of which, you got your start in the music business by producing shows in college with huge names: Charli, MCX, Lupe, Fiasco, other people like that at Hamilton College. Now you're delivering, you mentioned earlier, delivering those shows to them again. Now, that's got to be an enormous sense of pride for you to be a young alum. Like you probably haven't even framed your diploma yet. You're probably like, oh, I'm going to frame it next year. You probably haven't even framed it yet. And you're already giving back to the college. Now, was this something, did they reach out to you and say, we would love to have Chelsea Cutler here. We would love to have, is it Shaed? Is that the name of the band?
Yep.
Yeah. We'd love to have Shaed here. And we know we can only do it virtually. But you were able to get back to your alma mater. So was that something that you went to them for? Or were they like, you were so successful, we need some content. Help us, please.
Yeah, they hit me up right as God, it seems like it was so long ago. Probably April or May.
Yeah.
They hit me up and they were like, hey, like, we're trying to figure out, we're trying to scramble. And the issue at that point was money and artist connections, because there's kind of a natural path that these schools use to get the talent. But right when everything was so crazy, we had no idea like how this was all going to go down, how long it was going to last. And so they came to me and they said, do you have any ideas? Do you think anyone would want to do something like this? How can we put these shows together and do it, and save the most money, because we don't know what the scenario is. But it was really rewarding. It was really fun. It was a fun experience. And Shaed is actually a cool one, because I became friends with them by bringing them to Hamilton for an in-person show a few years before.
Really?
They opened up for Jesse McCartney
probably
like 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And it wasn't even like, musically, it wasn't the most natural fit, them and Jesse McCartney. And we heard the music and we were like hooked as soon as we heard them and knew they were available. We're like, we got to get these guys. So they came, they did the show. And I was able to actually get them booked at another show at Brandeis, just through friends. And they had no idea. So it was them opening up for A$AP Ferg with another artist, Ezzy, who I work with. And so I pull up and I'm backstage. I've just gotten out of the golf cart and I'm walking around and I see them and they're like, Josh, what are you doing here? Like, this isn't Hamilton. And I was like, oh yeah, I actually got you guys booked. And we just stayed friends over the years. And right around the time of the second Hamilton show, the virtual show, they had been coming off an amazing year where their song Trampoline was the #1 added song on radio, on alternative and rock radio of the year. So amazing. To get to do that again and bring them back to Hamilton was the coolest thing. And the demand was insane. I mean, so many kids said, oh my God, we became fans 3 years ago when you came to Hamilton to open. Yeah. And they've made it, and they're able to do headline events. So that was
there's nothing cooler than when you discover a band that nobody knows of. And that must be harder and harder these days, because when I was growing up, if we wanted to find out about a new band, there was like one alternative rock station where I grew up, or you'd have to see them at one of these small venues and you're like, oh my God, these guys are amazing. And then all of a sudden they got a video on MTV and they go through the roof and you're like, I knew them 3 years ago, man. You're like, yeah, I knew them when they were so small. And like you feel like you own a piece of that artist. Like it's, cause it's like part of you and they spoke to you and all that. But so Hamilton, and then Brandeis is the second school. And now this is something you do. You book acts for colleges all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an agent. I would, and I don't mean to, I don't look to compete with what agents do. Yeah. There's a couple of artists who I've been lucky to get to know very well and who I believe in. And actually now through Up All Night, we have a vehicle to do it. But I've always wanted to be proactive. I've always wanted to kind of, go after it. And the college market's weird. I mean, college kids want what they want. And you can either try and see if your artist is going to be the one that they want, or you can't. And a lot of my friends have, done similar things as me and worked at different colleges and things like that. So I'm always looking to help the artists that I work with, if I'm able to. With our company, concert promotion is what we do. We book the show, we book the talent, we get the venue, we advance the show, and we promote it to make sure people are there. But if there's other sources of income that we can give to our artists, especially our developing artists, it's something that we always want to do. And I've been really inspired by Bowery Presents and like their origin story of all these all these amazing bands, Arcade Fire sleeping on Jim Glancy's floor. Amazing. Ed Sheeran's first show in New York at Mercury Lounge. Same for Adele. And still to this day, whenever they tour New York, whether it's a Live Nation tour or an AEG tour, Bowery Presents will do those artist shows in New York.
That's unbelievable. How do you get
inspired by that?
Like that? That's got to just be industry people, right?
Yeah. So any way we can help artists that we work with, we always want to do that for them.
Now, I've talked to comedians who won't do the college tours anymore. Jerry Seinfeld famously said that the college tour thing is dead. The kids are too sensitive. Everybody is offended by everything. Is that when it comes to music, you just don't have that type of thing. So people must be dying to get into the college scene because it's a great revenue generator for the artist. And it's also, what are college kids spending money on? Music. Like, that's your demographic.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've actually seen some artists starting to get boycotted now in the past. The one that comes to mind, B.O.B., who is like a huge throwback hit. And he, like, the top earning artist in the college circuit right now, and for the past few years, is probably Jesse McCartney. Yeah. Because he has an amazing kind of throwback nostalgia vibe. B.O.B. is someone who should be in that same, kind of sphere. But he is a big conspiracy theorist. He thinks the earth is flat. He thinks like 9/11 didn't happen. And so there's been a number of shows with him that I've seen where it's been canceled. In terms of like lyrics, that's starting to happen. It's not as common as with comedians. What I would say in my experience is every college is different, and you really need to kind of know what's the right vibe. And someone could play really well at Syracuse, but at Wesleyan, it may not be the right fit. And it's really important to kind of be aware of that. And again, in that position, you never book for yourself. You never book the artist you want to see. You book the artist that the kind of college as a whole would want to see. So you do have to be careful.
Yeah, but I would say in general that anybody who shies away from certain audiences, you've got to be able to read the room. Mm-hmm. And stand-up comedy in general, they could be great at stand-up New York one night, and then the next night they're doing a show in Brooklyn, and they're flopping. It's like, it really, you got to be able to just read the audience right away. I mean, with music, you gotta quickly realize, like, wow, this crowd is dead. We got to wake them up. But with comedy, it's like, they don't like this line. Like, you better have more than 5 minutes of material on one subject. You better be able to do like a hard 10, hard 20, so that you can again pivot. From one, in the old way, people used to pivot live in front of audiences. Like, man, this isn't working. I better do this.
And
I know that in auctions, like,
so important for music because there's so many artists. Whether it's like Dave Matthews Band, they used to, when everyone else was not letting kids record a set, Dave Matthews Band used to go out and actively encourage people to record their set on tapes. And they were playing colleges. Even like Fish, their first show, famously, my dad always reminds me, was in the Harris Millis dorm at UVM, where he lived. They played there a few years in a row. Yeah. And all these bands really leaned into the college circuit, and it's almost like the Beatles in the club in Liverpool. You have to use these shows to kind of iron out the kinks and see what works and what doesn't, and the college audience will let you know if it's working.
Yeah, and now with social media, I think that might be part of it as well, where if audiences were 10 years ago were sensitive, at least people didn't have a smartphone. 12 years ago, they weren't filming it with their smartphone and throwing it out on 12 different platforms right away, and it would take you weeks to get canceled then instead of overnight. Does that piss you off though a bit, though, that it's your generation is being talked about? You're like, I was just in college. You're like, I had an awesome experience. We had parties. We had a normal college upbringing, but maybe we were just a bit more vocal, like maybe our parents were or our grandparents were. And it's kind of tough. I think you have a generation of entrepreneurs, of incredibly creative people who also are using those platforms mostly for good. And there's a generation ahead of you who thinks that you've gone too far.
Yeah, I mean, I think kids my generation, we expect a lot out of the artists that we see, and we want to believe in people that believe in our ideals and believe in what we care about. And there's so many artists that have an amazing platform and do so much for good, and like those are the people that we want to support. And like I always hate it when people say like, oh, just shut up and dribble, just stick to singing. And I always disagree with that, because no other profession gets that. When anyone in the business world speaks out and gives hundreds of millions of dollars to a campaign, like that's your right, and you can do that. That's your way to make a difference. Like, go for it. That's and so the musicians and celebrities, like that's their platform as well. And I think it's okay to hold people accountable in the same way we would any other person in the business world.
Yeah, I think the days of just shoot the ball and shut up, just play guitar and shut up are definitely behind us. I was saying to somebody on another episode that going forward, there's always been charitable sides to festivals where we're going to donate X dollars to cancer research or something like that. But it feels like at least music festivals going forward, there almost needs to be that voice of social justice because of the diversity of the crowd that is their fan base, because of the age of people that are going to festivals. It's almost like it's a must. Like, and maybe that will be the charity angle too. Like, we're going to give money towards leveling the playing field, perhaps in education, or leveling the playing field when it comes to minority entrepreneurs getting access to capital or something like that. I mean, you're seeing that now in corporations. You're seeing that now with companies like Citibank is like they're partnered with a bank that would normally lend to a minority base, and they're backing those loans. They're like, we want to be a part of this. This is the right message for the future.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And even like both at Primary Wave and with Up All Night through the Bowery Electric, I've been able to work with the people over at Headcount. And even like what they've done, I mean, they've registered millions of people who go to music festivals, and you walk in the door and the first thing you see is a table to register to vote. So, I think things like that are amazing. And for the people who get annoyed by it, you can ignore it.
You can tune out. You don't have to watch this podcast. You don't have to like people like Joe Rogan and this, that. It's like, you don't have to listen to Joe. You don't have to listen to somebody who completely disagrees with Joe. You don't have to listen to any of these people. Like, just go with what you believe in instead of getting angry and pissed off, and follow that. But the complete opposite of getting angry and pissed off is what you're wearing on your shirt from the Marley family. Now, I know you worked with the Marley family, and this might be a great example. The One Love tour or whatever this was, and MasterCard got behind it. What's the story with that? And is that a hoodie? And can you get that? Can I get one an extra medium? How do I get one?
I stole so many, so I've got some pictures. We got Bob Marley in the background looking over me as well.
Yeah. So I was wondering what that smell was too. I was like, is somebody burning some rope?
Come on now. So Primary Wave does a massive Grammy party every year. We've done it every year of the company, and actually before I was even full time on the brand team. All the tours I've done, it's all been through Primary Wave. So they had me out to help produce basically we did a week of events to honor Bob, what would have been a 75th birthday around this year's Grammys. We published Bob Marley. We worked very, very closely with Cedella and Skip and the whole family. So we did an amazing week of events at the One Love, the One Hotel, but we called it the One Love Hotel in LA. And it was a celebration. We had live music every night. We had, first of all, literally all of the Marleys were there, and there are so many of them, and they are all lovely. So there was music every night from the Marleys. We had Bishop Briggs, Melissa Etheridge, Jack Ross, so many amazing artists who, Shawn Mendes came to our party. We did a talk with Sway Calloway, where he interviewed the family, all the different generations, and they spoke about, how they've managed to kind of uphold this amazing legacy, of Bob.
Yeah.
And it all culminated with our big party, the night before the Grammys. And it was an honor, to be a 23-year-old kid, a few months graduated from college, and I'm producing events with, Sedella Marley was, it was a true honor, and they are every bit as cool and as lovely and as smart as everyone says they are.
Incredible. My first concert that I ever went to live show was Ziggy Marley.
Awesome.
And that was at the Garden State Arts Center in New Jersey. But never forget it. He was Tomorrow People. I think it was the Tomorrow People Tour was the name of, that was his first big hit.
One of my favorite stories about that weekend. So Mike Tyson came to one of our events, and I'm about, I don't know, 160 pounds, like, skinny little white Jewish kid. And I was producing the event. So, part of that is running security for the night. And so Mike Tyson walks in, and anytime a celebrity is coming, especially someone at that level, it's my responsibility to make sure they know that security is available to them. So Mike Tyson walks in the door. I walk over to him and I say, Mr. Tyson, we're so happy you're here. Thanks for coming. By the way, our head of security is right over here. If you're interested in, he's happy to walk you in to the room. And it was packed. There were like hundreds of people there.
All right, Mike, here's your security.
He takes one look at me, one look at our security. He goes, "Nah, kid, I'm all right. Don't worry about it."
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I was like, that was the coolest moment ever. To like,
you're like quick selfie.
Yeah, to tell Mike Tyson that we have security for him, only for him to like walk into a room of 600 people packed and like not care at all.
That's wild. And Mike was just there as a guest. He wasn't.
Yeah, Mike is a friend and a fan of Jack Ross. We partnered up with Island Records for the week, and Jack was playing, and so Mike came to see him.
Oh, unbelievable. So now we say that you got your start in music in college, but you've been a fan your whole life, and obviously the music has been in you since you were a kid. Who or what were your music influences growing up?
Yeah. I like to say that my parents raised me right. We had Billy Joel, Chicago, Elton John, the Talking Heads. Those are probably my top four growing up. But also my grandmother has been a huge influence on me, and she's a big, big music fan. So I grew up going to the ballet and the opera and seeing the New York Philharmonic. And I played the cello for 10 years when I was younger.
Right.
So I had a lot of classical influences as well. And as I've, with that background, what I always tell people is good music is good music. And it's easy to tell what's good and what's not good. And so I've, having kind of that amazing music from my parents, but also combined with the classical music that I grew up on with my grandma, I've really kind of been able to see like a wide variety of music. And I think it's helped me actually, because you can tell what music is real and what's good. And yeah, so I have a really weird eclectic taste of music now.
It's interesting because we were doing an episode with the founder or one of the partners of Le Poisson Rouge, and his background in music is very similar, very eclectic, and definitely a classic piece of that. I don't know if you've ever met Justin before, if you know him, but I think you guys would have a lot to talk about.
Awesome. So
now that music is your livelihood, you have to separate being the fan that you were your whole life from the businessman. And would a bad interaction with a client make you hate that music? And when you heard it, you're like, I got to change the station or fast forward to the next song or anything like that?
No, touring has helped me learn so much about what it's like to be an artist. And if I think artists should always be nice to people, right? Like you should always pay respect, as anyone should, to the people who kind of brought you to the dance. But having been on the road now, like I really kind of understand how isolating it is and how hard it is. And Lucas Graham, who's one of my favorite artists, has a line about like, you know, being in a room full of people but being all alone, and that's really what touring is like. And so I now kind of have a greater understanding of like what can cause an artist to kind of, you know, have a tough moment or not want to talk to fans after the show and things like that. I've been lucky. I haven't really worked with anyone you know, who hasn't been cool. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're right. You kind of have to separate the music sometimes from the person. And I always would tell people that, you know, everyone's allowed to have a bad day sometimes. Just because, you know, if you have a bad experience with one of your favorite artists or celebrities, like that sucks. It's like demoralizing. I get it. You know, I've met people, you know, I've met celebrities when I was younger who like didn't really care and weren't that cool. And it's awful, you know, it's super disappointing, but I always try and remember that like the person, you know, on the other end is a human as well. And maybe you just caught him on a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah. People say you should never meet your heroes because you don't want to be disappointed because they are human. Hard to believe. Now, would you ever go back on the road again if the situation was, if it was the right situation?
My girlfriend would kill me, I think.
Yeah.
I love touring. You know, I think it would have to be like for the right artist, and I'm so lucky that I've done it. It was I mean, I got to do 2 tours at pretty different levels and see what it should look like and how it looks when it's done right. Now I'm really hungry and focused on growing, you know, my promotions company and starting in the New York City area. So that's the big focus. So I'd be hard pressed, I think, to kind of, you know, take a few months off to go back on the road again.
Yeah.
But I will say never say never.
Okay. And it looks like you got off the road with Luke Bryan. You got off that tour or so on at the same time with COVID looming. And obviously none of us knew this was coming. But, you know, were you immediately, did you already have a plan, or were you just like, I'm going to pivot right back in, one more shot. I'm going to go right back into promotions, or was it, did the tour just come to an end?
So the tour, it was a summer tour. I was working for a brand, and they were sponsoring the tour, and we had a set amount of dates, and so I think we had 15 dates in total. So I knew it was going to be an amazing, like super fun thing to do. This is literally right after I graduated college, and so it was perfect for what it was. And then I knew it was time to kind of, you know, apply for full-time gigs. And actually, I started up on that music group because I knew I wanted to be a promoter, and I applied to a job at one of the top, you know, promotion companies. And it came down to me and an internal candidate. And I ended up not getting the job. And so in that moment, I said, okay, well, if they don't hire me, I'm going to hire myself.
Bingo. Like we were talking about before, don't let anybody fire you.
Yeah. So that's actually how I started the company.
Out of necessity, out of need, out of want, out of desire. Those are the aspects of an entrepreneur, man. So you are on your way. So congratulations to that. So now going forward, when do you think artists are going to start hitting the road again? And what do you think that process is going to be, even with a vaccine shot or 2 in the arm? What's that process going to be about fans getting back into arenas, small and large?
Yeah, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic that this summer, but probably in the fall, we could get some stuff going again. I know Live Nation and Ticketmaster are already doing an amazing job kind of setting out a plan of what that's going to be like. I mean, I think testing is going to be required. I don't think everyone is going to want to go back right away. A lot is going to depend on how quickly we're able to get this vaccine out. Because, you know, for the artist, like, if you're an artist and you're not vaccinated, it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing.
Exactly.
You know? And when you're intentional about it, you can do amazing things. Jefferson Starship just played a show, an indoor show, socially distant, and, you know, 500 people were there, I think, and zero cases came out of it because everyone was intentional. Everyone was tested. Everyone was temperature checked. People were spread out. And so if you're able to kind of have that hyper focus, I do think we can do some things. But unfortunately, a lot of it's going to be kind of out of our control.
Right. Now, I saw Ticketmasters doing something where when I scan my ticket at a show coming up, there's going to be something on there that says that I either have the vaccine or that I just recently tested negative. something like that. I don't know how I guess they're going to do that through the app. So once they scan your ticket, the next thing that the ticket scanner sees is COVID negative or something like that. So I imagine technology is really going to come into play in this.
Yeah, and I think they're going
back into the arenas.
I think they're going to require people to get tested with a specific company, and they're going to partner up. And I mean, look, people are going to have to do it. There are people who are going to say, it's an invasion of privacy and this, that, and the other. And at the end of the day, they can they can say what they want, but it's about safety. And if you want to go to the show, you got to follow the rules.
So when you were on the road back to that for that summer, were there any music fests along the way that you hit with the artist?
We did some stuff around CMA Fest in Nashville, which was, just being there was amazing. We ran an activation. So most of the time we would go to the actual show, and there was a product that Luke was endorsing, and there's some plans for him and the brand to kind of collaborate on a larger thing. I can't really go into too much detail.
You don't have to. Don't worry. But, this is all confidential here until it goes out onto the internet.
Yeah, until it goes out to everyone. So most of the time we'd be at the venue right when people walk in. But for CMAs, we were there for a whole week, and we did something a little bit different. We posted up our setup in the George Jones bar in downtown Nashville, right on Broadway, and we had the best view of the stage down there, right on the water, right on the river.
Wow.
And being around that was just the coolest thing. And I don't know if you've been there, but every step you take in Broadway, when you're there for CMAs, there's a stage. It could be a huge stage, it could be a small stage.
Yeah.
It was super memorable. I mean, the talent there is just ridiculous. I mean, there's so many people you're seeing play to a bar, 200 people, and then you blink, and then we saw Lil Nas X play for 200 people, and you blink, and look what happened.
Yeah, and I was in Nashville, and I just drove a friend from New York to, in fact, the founder of festivalPass. I drove him from New York to Austin. He moved. And along the way, we stopped in a bunch of different cities. It was incredible just to see how dead every city was. When we start the trip basically, in the middle of Manhattan, and it's quiet. And then you go down to Virginia, you're not so surprised. But then you get to New Orleans. And New Orleans is crickets. Bourbon Street, crickets. And the stuff that was open on Bourbon Street it just felt dangerous. It just did not feel good. Yeah. And then we went to Nashville, and just unbelievably quiet, and closed at 9:30, 10 o'clock on Broadway. And I was like, "Can we get a beer?" The guy's like, "We're done." I'm like, 9 o'clock? I just rolled out of bed, man. This is Nashville. Let's go. He's like, "Nope." And it was like that, Houston, same thing. It was very, very hard to deal with. And you just remember, I'm like, man, last time I was here, I don't think I slept for 2 days.
Yeah. But no, it's nuts. I mean, I'm if everyone hopefully can just wear their mask.
Yes.
Hopefully we can get through it and get back to the live stuff as soon as possible.
Yeah, folks, please. We're almost to the other side of this. I don't want to say rounding the corner, but we are almost to the other side of this. And if everybody can just realize we're all in this together. Hey, there's one right there. Another shot. We're all in this together. But we really are. So wear the mask. It's not hard to do. Wash your hands. Just be respectful of other people. I really believe in that idea that, if you're wearing the mask, that says that I care about you, not just that you care about yourself. It's you give a crap about other people around you. And in New York, as you know, everybody's wearing the masks. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I head out to the suburbs, New Jersey or something. I don't see everybody wearing the mask. They're like, "Oh, it's all of our neighbors. We all see each other all the time." It's yeah, but that neighbor might have just traveled to Virginia, and that one might have gone there, and this one might have been all over the place. So you don't know where everybody is all the time. Even in a small town where you think you know all the gossip and everybody's movements, you don't. Yeah. You just don't. Somebody could be having an affair, and that person could have that's a weird way to get COVID, but that could happen. I'm sure there's been some affairs that have been, uncovered because of this. Because somebody had to do contact tracing. It's yeah, I was out of. Yeah. Yep. Yes. Yep. Yep. I was that day too. Yeah. Sorry, everyone. But anyway, we digress, right? But before or while you were in the business, were you a festival attendee yourself? Did you go to a lot of music festivals? I don't want to say when you're younger because you're still like, what, 16, 26? I don't know. But I mean, do you go to festivals or did you go to festivals? Was it your thing?
Yeah. I mean, so Gov Ball is our kind of big New York festival. So love those guys, the founders team. They're all great. Which
one is that? What festival? Doug Ball?
Gov Ball.
Oh, Gov. Sorry. See, you're way too hip for me, man. I'm like, oh, Governor's Ball. Yes, Governor's Ball. Yeah.
We've they've had some bad luck with weather, unfortunately.
Yeah, they have.
Which is a bummer. And I know that feeling. It sucks. Like I mean, even going back to my Hamilton days, our big concert was called the Class and Charter concert, and 4 years in a row we got moved from outdoors to indoors because of the weather. So I know the feeling. It sucks. But love Gov Ball. I mean, it's as a music fan, there's no better use of money, in my opinion. You could spend $150 for a seat to see a normal stadium tour, and you could take that $150 and use it and see 10 acts in one day. So definitely love festivals and anxiously awaiting their return.
And that's the whole idea behind festivalPass. Be a member, get involved, and when festivals are back, you get to pick your festival. You get credits towards picking festivals you want to go to, and you go to see the best stuff at the best price.
Yeah.
So amazing. I know we're almost out of time, so I will ask you one or two questions in my area I like to call COVID confidential. So we've both been open books here, talking about all sorts of things, but during this time of pause in live events and so on, did you figure out, besides starting a business, but besides starting your own business, did you figure out anything about yourself, like that you're an amazing chef, or besides the cello, you can also rock out on the bass or the guitar?
I realized my embarrassing love of reality TV. But no, the kind of serious answer, I guess, to that is I've learned a lot about myself as a leader, as running a company, and I'm so fortunate because the people who work with me on Up All Night Music Group are my best friends in the whole world and my girlfriend, and so we are so lucky. And I've learned, and this is what I would tell any young entrepreneur: like, it's okay to not have all the answers, and you don't need to wait until you know all the answers to start. If you have an idea, like, just go for it, and it's okay to ask for help along the way. And I've learned a lot about kind of my own leadership style throughout this, because it's been tough. We haven't seen each other in, coming up on 9 months, most of us now. So I've tried to kind of reflect inwards, I guess, and learn. And, really, when you start a business, you bring people in for a reason, and so I've really tried to kind of hone in on that and use the people that I want to work with, because there's a reason you brought them there.
Yeah, you got your cabinet. You're like Joe Biden. You're unveiling all your new people. You're like, this is this person. They're great. They know this. This is my numbers person, and so on. And you bring in the experience, and you learn together along the way. And how are you staying in touch with everybody? Are you doing like all hands weekly meeting via Zoom or something?
Yeah, we do like a weekly or bi-weekly Zoom call, and then just I'm a big fan of the random FaceTime. I'd much rather like see someone's face. So
yeah,
we all talk in FaceTime a lot.
Yeah, all of a sudden someone's like, "Oh, he's FaceTiming me. Oh God, you think I have to accept it? Oh, I guess I do." But that's I think that's great advice. You don't have to have all the answers. And again, in a time where so many people have lost their jobs, this is the time. It takes money to do any of these things, but it doesn't take a lot of money to start a small business with one person. Mm-hmm. And you go for it. You give it a year of your life. You got something going. Maybe you go out to a few people and say, well, here's the idea. Here's what we did in a year where people said you're never even going to make any money. well, we broke even and we are going to build for the future. So invest in this idea, invest in what we're doing, and you build it up slowly. So well done to you, man.
Yeah. And thank you. And all it takes is one. All it takes is that first client, or that first event. And even to your point, like, you know, I was very lucky to be able to start a company and invest money into it and things like that. But you don't have to, you know, I mean, it just takes one event and you can do that in a lot of moments without having to spend a ton of money and like put the rest of your life at risk, and you can just take a shot.
Yeah. And your one love, as your sweatshirt says right now, needs to be that business. You put in the time now, you look back in 5 years and you're going to say, look at what we built.
Yeah.
And look where we started. And we did this together as friends and as a team. And they're going to look at you and say, this guy's a leader. Can't wait to see what he does next. So you're a promoter, first of all. So why don't you do some promoting and tell us how we can find out about All Night Music Group and all of the stuff that you are doing in the branding team and so on.
Yeah. So with Up All Night Music Group, this is the first time I'm going to say this actually. So in case anyone is excited about it, we're coming up on 1 year since founding the company. And so we're going to be doing a pretty big like rebrand and relaunch of the company based on, you know, a lot of things have happened over this past year. A lot of services, you know, we didn't expect to offer, we're offering and things like that. So right now, upallnightmusicgroup.com is the best place to follow along, and that has all of our socials and things like that. But very soon there could be some exciting developments to report. So for now, upallnightmusicgroup.com is the place to be. And then all the work I do over at Primary Wave, they're an amazing music publisher and management company. You know, I'm a 23-year-old kid who gets to work with some of the biggest names in the history of music, and I don't take that for granted for 1 second. So I got to get them a shout out there as well. So Primary Wave Entertainment, another great place to check out, primarywave.com.
Awesome. He's got a relaunch of the website. We've got a relaunch of our life coming up around the corner at the end of this year. So well done to you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Josh Rothstein. Josh, thank you so much for your time. And we'll see you guys next time on Festival Pass Stories.
This is fun. Thanks, Pat.
This is Festival Pass Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next.